Hey, hi guys, it's Drew again from the Radio Geeks, bringing you another video looking at the series of programs by Jonathan Naylor, G4KLX. This time we're going to look at the client programs that Jonathan has available. Okay, so the first program we're going to look at today is DummyRepeater. Now, DummyRepeater is a program that you run on your PC, and it collects to IRC DDB gateway. But it's essentially a Dstar client program. So you run the program from a PC desktop, and it allows you to make use of one of the AMBI coding devices, and it makes use of the computer speakers and computer microphone in order to get the audio in and out of the Dstar network. If we start by looking at the preferences, fairly easy setup here. Your call sign would go in there. Anything you wanted to put. Normally, when you're running a dongle, people use DNGL to show that you're on a client application. And then we have configuration for our sound card. So that's our microphone input and our speaker output selection. We now look at the AMBI dongle. Now, DummyRepeater can be used with quite a few different dongles. There's the DV dongle by Internet Labs. There's the DV3000 network adapter. There's the DV3000 USB serial adapter. And we have the Star DV devices. And we have Goose Van Doren's DV Mega AMBI decoder as well. Okay, so on my particular install, I'm running with the DV dongle from Internet Labs. I bought that several years ago, so that's the device we're going to run on this installation. I know that's connected via USB and being seen by the operating system as COM5. Now, should you be using the DV3000 or the DV3000 network adapters, then you obviously have continual fields here to fill in for those particular devices. But where the dongle's concerned, I just need a COM port. Our network, well, you've all seen this before. This is the IP addresses that talk to IRC DDB gateway. So we have our IRC DDB address there. IRC DDB in this instance, as you probably will know by now, is running on the same machine. There's the port that IRC DDB is using. There's the IP address of the machine running the DummyRepeater and the port that DummyRepeater is listening on. So if you were running again over multiple machines, as always, the gateway address would be the IP address of IRC DDB and the port from that PC, and the local address would be the address that DummyRepeater, the PC that DummyRepeater is running on, and the port that DummyRepeater is listening to. The controller tab is quite interesting because we can use that to control additional devices. So for those of you that want to put together a sort of analog Dstar gateway, this is quite clever because we can use our sound card to forward our audio to and from our analog radio, and then we can use a simple serial port keying interface, or we can use the URI, or we can use, of course, the original Velleman board. But there's a few options there. and then of course every time we hear audio from the radio, this instance would key the dummy repeater so we can forward that audio onto the Dstar network. Now this is a little advanced, so I'm jumping ahead quite a ways. So, but it is a handy little way to get around a Dstar to analog bridge. The config is the config for the COM port, so we can use the I think config 2 uses the RTS pin to transmit, and it uses the DTR pin, I believe, to receive. Sort of a COS line, but don't quote me on that one. Our timeout, well, again, that's simple. We set that to just in the same as our radio. That would be the same as our timeout for our repeater. So if you're running on a 3-minute timeout, as most of the original icon boxes are, we set ourselves for 3 minutes for a 3-minute timeout. Our message, just like again, just like our Dstar radios, we can propagate a slow data text message there. So I'll just put my name there, and then people on the network will know who I am. The beep can be set on or off using this little checkbox. Essentially, it's just a little courtesy tone at the end of an over, just to know that you've the person you're in QSO with finished talking. Again, the same as your Dstar radio. So that's the config. We'll save those parameters, and we get our usual KLX notification that tells us that the changes won't be made into effect until we restart. So if I now close dummy repeater and I run it again, okay, so driving dummy repeater is fairly instant. You've got a UR field, just like your radio, so we use UR CQ to talk on a network. We can use DCS 005BL. So if we keyed up now, that would send a link request to IRC DDB gateway to connect to DCS5B. And again, of course, we change back to CQ after we've get the notification to say we're linked. The repeat one would be the call sign that you're using with IRC DDB. So if I'm using a call sign, IRC DDB call sign of test, and I'm using our module A, it would be test, and then the A obviously in our 8th position, the same as all repeat 1 and repeat 2 configs. And again with repeat 2, there'll be the call sign that you're working under, and then the G field to put us out through the gateway. So it'd probably make more sense actually if I made that call sign also. Call sign, and then in the 8th position, the A and the G, or the B, or the C, or the D, or the E, depending on which module you're running with IRC DDB, gateway has to be in the 8th position. So it's no different than our standard radio setup. So essentially these drop boxes up here echo our radio's UR repeat 1 and repeat 2 fields. So if I'm looking to connect to DCS5B, I would push our transmit button, and I have an error because I have the wrong call sign in there. But of course, if it was set to your call sign, or the the IRC DDB gateway call sign, you wouldn't have that problem. So just for demonstration purposes, the call sign's in there, and then the module number, the call sign up here, and then the gateway. So that would give us that effect, and we could 7 spaces in a U. And if we were to transmit that, again I'm going to get that little error, but ignore that. So now we've unlinked the module. And of course these stay in our checkboxes, so if we want to select them from any of the drop downs, once we've actually, if I was to put an I field in there and transmit, again ignore the error message, but the I field there, I would transmit. The transmit is push once to talk and push again to release. So it's a latching PTT in effect. And that's essentially all there is to DummyRepeater. It's a very simple piece of software, but it is quite useful if you have one of the Ambi codec devices, in that of course you can monitor, you can remote monitor your gateway, or you can access your gateway or repeater whilst you're sat in a hotel room with a simple laptop or something like that. So very simple program, very, very useful program. Okay guys, just to finish off this little series looking at Jonathan's software, I'm going to look at some of Jonathan's older software. Now this software I don't think he supports anymore, but it is still readily available. You need to join the Dstar development Yahoo group, and from in the file section there, these next programs I'm going to show you are still available for download, or I believe they're still available for download. So what we're going to start with is the DCS client. This is a DCS client program, so this allows you to connect to the various DCS reflectors using your PC. Again, we input, like DummyRepeater, we input our audio via our PC microphone, and we receive audio back from the network using the PC speakers. So just a quick little look around the GUI. Here's our different selection drop-down box for the different DCS reflectors we can join, and then of course we have all the modules for each reflector as well. And we click the connect button, and essentially I'm now connected to DCS5B. It's that simple. Now if I wanted to talk on DCS5B, I would use the transmit button here, click once to enable transmit, click again to stop transmit. So it's a very simple GUI, but it is a very effective program. So if we look at the preferences, again very similar to our previous little look at DummyRepeater. So we have your personal call sign, we have the sound card that we're inputting our microphone and our speakers from. We have our controller. Again, this can be used to key an external device using the Velleman boards, the URI, or again a very simple RS-232 keying interface. The current DCS program that I have here only supports the DV dongle. I think Jonathan's kind of moved away from these programs and written everything into DummyRepeater now. So that's probably the one you want to be using, is the DummyRepeater software that we looked at earlier. But these legacy programs are obviously still quite useful if you've got some of the old equipment available, the old Internet Labs DV dongle, which I'm using in this case. And the next tab, just the same as our message, text in our radio, we again can send a slow text data message there. So hello from Drew, and each time I transmit, that would be hello from Drew. There we are. So every time I keyed that, that would appear in the slow text message. And we have our beep again. So at the end of the the receiving from the network, you get a courtesy beep to make you aware that that person has stopped transmitting. One more tab. It's a startup tab, so we can actually, as soon as the program starts, it can connect directly to a reflector and a module of choice. I tend not to enable that, so we'll leave that blank. So that's DCS client. There's also a version for DXtra, strangely enough, called DXtra client. So again, exactly the same GUI, the ability there to connect to different reflectors and different modules. Obviously this time only the A, B, C and D, because we're looking at DXtra linking. The configuration exactly the same as the earlier ones we looked at. So mic call, sound card, microphone in, speaker out, controller for external keying, our DV dongle, which we use as our AMBI codec device, our short text, and our courtesy beep, and our startup reflector, should we wish to choose one. So along with these other programs, Jonathan also wrote a program to allow us to convert our standard analog radios into Dstar radios by running these programs and connecting the computer to them. So the graphical interface is very similar again to the previous programs we looked at. Just as in DummyRepeater, you've got a drop-down box allowing us to select our UR field. We've got a repeat 1 and a repeat 2, and a simple latching transmit bar to key the radio. Our preference tab is a little bit different this time, in that we have abilities to enter your call sign and probably a short message thereafter. Now we have two audio tabs this time. The first audio tab is the microphone input and the speaker output from the PC. So your audio in and the audio out via the computer. The second sound card we need to connect to our radio discriminator and modulator. So any of the newer radios with the 6-pin packet port, anything really that can handle a 9K6 input, can work with or should work with this program. Back in the day, a very cheap way to get your analog radio onto Dstar, using this software. So over time I've used it with quite a few different radios. So GMSK inversion, those of you that have looked at Jonathan's software before, you'll know what this field is. On some of the modulators we need to invert the GMSK string, and again on some of the demodulators. So you invert the input and the output. The control tab, this would allow the interface to key your radio for sending the Dstar string. So again, we have the Velleman inputs, the URI inputs, or the standard serial RS-232 keying interfaces. Our DV dongle tab, we simply have to tell it what USB COM port the DV dongle is using. Our message field, again as in our radio, can be any message you want to put in there, and a courtesy beep again at the end of the QSO over to let you know your partner has stopped transmitting. So that's the Dstar client, and the Dstar client using the Internet Labs DV dongle. Okay, so following along the same idea, we now have the same program, but this time instead of making use of the DV dongle, we make use of the DVAP, the Internet Labs DVAP. So again, we have fields for call sign, we have our sound card microphone input from our PC and our speaker output from our PC. We then have our tab for configuring our DVAP, so we look and see what COM port our DVAP is on, and we set whether it's the 2 meter or 77's DVAP. We select our frequency, our power output, our squelch threshold, and of course any offset within that frequency field. Obviously, with 10 milliwatts output, you're not going to be setting the RF world alight. But if you need to use the DVAP for local testing, this is a good way of monitoring the output of the Dstar repeater, etc. But as I say, running 10 milliwatts, it's probably not going to be a lot of use to you if you're 50 miles away from your local Dstar repeater or Dstar hotspot. It uses the DV dongle to generate our AmbiStream. So the DV dongle is used to encode and decode our ambi, which our DVAP will transmit and receive. Again, the text box for our slow data text field, and the courtesy beep at the end of the over. So that's the DVAP client program. Again, very similar, but this time using the DVR PTR modem. So the same GUI again, only this time not only are we using our DV dongle to generate our ambi codec from our speakers and our mic of our PC. In this instance, we would use the DVR PTR board, either the Model 1 or the Model 2, to allow us to run our interface. Again, slow message, text data box, and the courtesy beep at the end of it. And just another quick little look at something very similar again, the GMSK client. Same thing again, but this time using our GMS keyboard as our control device for keying our radios, etc. Again, using our DV dongle as the modulator and demodulator for the ambicodec. So the same setup there, but using our GMS keyboard. So very similar programs, but a somewhat different version depending on what hardware you have. So hardware for a simple sound card interface, the GMS keyboard interface, a DummyRepeater interface, a DVAP interface, or direct access to our networks over the interweb. So there's a couple of the older programs that Jonathan developed, say no longer supported, I don't think, but they can be useful little programs all the same if you have some of the older legacy equipment. So there we are. That completes our look at the G4KLX Dstar programs. Probably ends the series looking at all the G4KLX development. I think we've pretty much covered all of Jonathan's software offerings until something new comes up. So from all of us here at the Radio Geeks, I hope you enjoyed our how-tos and our look at the differing offerings. So until next time, take care. I hope to see you back here on the Radio Geeks channel.